afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Spotlight on History. I'm Mary Helen Dellinger, curator of the Manassas Museum, and thank you for joining us today. Before we get started today on March 10th, a bit of trivia that ties in with last week's presentation on the telephone and the switchboard. On this date in 1876, Alexander Graham Bell uttered these words, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." And those were uttered over the very first telephone. So this was the world's first successful phone call. So I thought that'd be kind of a nice tie-in to what we talked about last week. All right, it's Women's History Month. I'm sure you've seen my colleague Rachel's already her talks that she's put online, so you should know that. But yes, it's Women's History Month. And I've been reading a little bit about famous women in history, and I discovered that Harriet Tubman died on this date in 1913. Here's a picture of Harriet, for those of you that might not know what she looks like. She was born into slavery in 1822 and later escaping and becoming a political activist and abolitionist. So she's perhaps most famous for her work helping other enslaved to escape on the Underground Railroad, but that's what she looked like. So in honor of Harriet Tubman, I thought it would be fun today to talk about some amazing women from Manassas or related to Manassas that are all groundbreaking in some way. So let's start with Clara Pearl Conway. We don't have an image of her. All we have is a picture of her headstone. I'm going to show you that. She was born in Alexandria in 1881, so just after the Civil War, and grew up to become a seamstress. And she lived here in Manassas with her husband over on Quarry Road. Now, she's groundbreaking because she was the first African-American woman to register to vote in Prince William County when women were able to do that. And to be an African-American woman and to achieve that at that time is even more groundbreaking than if a white woman had done it. So that's kind of cool. When she registered in 1920, she was required to pay a poll tax of $1.50, which she was able to successfully do. And she was one of over 30 women, and we're not sure how the breakdown is there, to register in Prince William County after gaining the right to do so. So the poll tax document from Manassas that we have in our off-site storage facility likely includes her among the tally of African-American women who did register to vote, because it doesn't list the names, it just lists the numbers. And so she's probably listed on that document as one of the few that were on there. When she died in 1957, she was buried at Rose Hill, and that was the photo of her grave marker over there. So if you're over at Rose Hill Cemetery, you'll be able to visit the grave site of this landmark or this groundbreaking woman. Now I want to share two images with you of women that you might not recognize. This one is Katie Brownell. There she is, kind of looking like the Wild West. And this one is Sarah Emma Edmonds, a little bit smaller. So for those of you that are Civil War buffs, you might recognize those names. For those of you that aren't, you're probably like, what the heck does that have to do with Manassas? So both of these women were present at the Battle of First Manassas in July of 1861 and served with the Union Army. They were actually in the Army. So Katie Brownell enlisted along with her husband in the 1st Rhode Island Infantry Regiment, and she trained with the regiment and was actually very good with firearms. So she was in action in First Manassas and was said to be at one point a color bearer for the unit of sharpshooters. She was passing off as obviously a man. Sarah Edmonds, also known as Frank Thompson, she went by that name during the war, was also on the battlefield at First Manassas as part of the 2nd Michigan Infantry. And she and her male comrades helped to cover the Union retreat late in the day. She later served in a hospital near the Old Stone Church in Centerville. So they are two of over 400 women who disguised themselves to fight in both the Union and Confederate armies during the war. So they were here at First Manassas, and I thought that was kind of interesting. So while they're not from here, they're still kind of groundbreaking in that women were in combat then. Now finally we have, and I'm just going to hold up this sign here. Many of you may recognize this. They were all over the city last fall. Michelle Davis Younger. She is obviously the new mayor of Manassas, and she was elected last November in a historic race that saw her running against another woman, Teresa Ellis. Now, not only is Ms. Davis Younger the first female mayor of Manassas, but she is also the first African-American to serve as a mayor, male or female. So we recently acquired her yard sign for our museum collection. Staff felt like they were important to have. And we also acquired one from the woman that she ran against, Teresa Ellis, because it's important to represent both campaigns. It was the first time in Manassas history that two women had faced off against each other, and we now are able to document that in our collection. So these are just a few of the amazing women, past and present, that helped make Manassas great and the community that it is today. What amazing women do you know? in Manassas history. Please share that with us for Women's History Month, and you can put their names and accomplishments in the comments below. That's all we have today. I hope you'll join us next week when I pull out 3 old office machines in our collection that were used in local businesses, and we'll see what they are and how they worked. I'm Mary Helen Dellinger, and I'll see you then.